Hallo, ich werde auf Englisch sprechen, weil so im Programm angekündigt wurde. And I will do my best. Actually, I prepared the lecture in German and then noticed that I should speak in English, so I will try it in English. If you do not understand, then just ask me, because obviously German is my first language, so I think I would be able to translate. Today I talk about young urban culture and sustainability, especially maybe from a perspective how Schmiede is sustainable. Schmiede as an art festival. Who does know Schmiede?
Does know.
Who does know? Who does know it? So most of you. As Marius just introduced, it's a festival for producers, and there is a research project which tries to find out why people actually participate and why they consider it a sustainable input to their biographies, to their professional biographies, and also like why it's a plus for their lives, so in a way. But I will come to this later. First, I want to introduce myself, maybe a little bit more than Marius just did. I work as an artist. I work mostly with others, but I graduated digital arts at Angewandte 5 years ago, almost. And what I mainly work on are kinetic sculptures, installations, mainly installations, I would say. Very often movement is a big part of these installations, and for this I got also involved in electronics, in hacking and things like this. The picture you see is a shot of an installation I did with Carla Spilottini, who is one of my frequent collaborators, and it's called Arachne. It's actually a moving, a very architectural sculpture, and this picture was taken in May in Salzburg. That's also why I picked it, because it was exhibited in a show from my studio at Galerie 5020. Yeah, I already mentioned it. I mainly work in collectives, for example with Carla Spilottini. I think you will hear more from her maybe next year in this format, subnetTALKs. We work together now for more than 5 years, and for us it's very important to consider, like, not just to give these installations a shape, or not just to sketch the concept of the way it should move, but also to like really code it ourselves and try to master the hardware and the software ourselves. But we are no professionals in this, so we more or less learn it all by ourselves, and we are autodidacts in a way, like in many ways. And I think it's maybe already an artistic statement, or for us it in a way defines the way we are working, that we really try to do most of our pieces even ourselves. It's not that I think that other artists do it in another way do not maybe more interesting art, but for us it's like very joyful to learn and to figure it out ourselves. So playfulness is something very important for us in this process, and I think because we try to do it ourselves, it's also very important that we do it together, because it makes things much more easy. And we also try to share it, as for example we try once a year in Tinker Lab at Schmiede, where we in a way are like in charge of the Tinker Lab, where people can try things, also electronics, but also other things. We also try to tried pieces with chemistry and stuff like this. It's like very, very much about the experiment in our work. So that's also maybe why I'm connected to Schmiede, because we are involved there as participants and also as people who try to bring input by the Tinker Lab. So that's maybe my artistic life. And then there is also a social research life, which I also take very serious. I graduated sociology and I love data, and I also love the empirical work in the field. So this is, I didn't choose it randomly, but that's a graphic I just presented yesterday in Vienna. And it tells us something about the Austrian education system in comparison to other European education systems. I'm in applied education research, so I work for a small institute. We are doing mainly policy research for the Ministry for Inner Affairs and the Social Ministry of Austria, as well as the Education Ministry. And what this would show us is actually, maybe I don't need to explain it. So it tells us how much an education certificate above just a compulsory degree, so to say. So if you have any further education in Austria, how much this would advance your chances at the labor market. And Austria is the second from the right side, and you can see the line is a little bit longer, like obviously longer than most of the others. And this tells us what we all say usually in our, I don't know, we say we are a country of where certificate or where our titles are very important, you know? We make jokes about this. And actually it's not a joke, it's true. Like in Austria, titles are much more important than in most other countries in Europe. So this is not just a saying to make jokes just about ourselves, but it's a reality that if you earn a degree in Austria, this gives you much better chances, or this maybe advances your chances to be successful in our labor market much more than in other countries. So good luck for you. I see you are in a good way here. Doesn't mean that you get paid more. No. And it's just, actually, I should just illustrate that this is also part of my job, to work in social science. But it connects to the topic in a way. Because what it also tells us is that in Austria, formal education, standardized education, which will end with a certificate, which will point out what qualifications, what competences you gained, and that some institution will be accountable for that you actually gained them. This formal certification and this formal education is very important in Austria. And what, an aspect of Schmiede, which we also focus in our research, is that it's actually also a place for informal learning. So to say, the opposite of what I just described. A place where you just learn from the other, where you learn in an environment. I mean, it's not just about learning, but curiosity, trying out stuff, trying to find a solution for a project. This is also about, this is a way to learn. And it's a process. You could consider a learning process. You could consider a process where you gain competences, where you get to know stuff, where you have a very concentrated space, where you have a very high concentration of knowledge you were maybe not aware of, or of competences, and you can just easily access them at this place, Schmiede, which I will try to explain now. So, therefore, I thought that it's interesting to bring a piece of my other social science work to contrast these realms of education. Because actually in Europe, like nowadays, and What's the Deal is a European Union project. It's funded by the European Union. So, and in a European context, we should be aware of that there are a lot of other countries, a lot of other contexts where informal education has a completely different, I don't know, maybe has a completely different stand or has a different importance, maybe. So maybe we should sometimes try not to think so much as Austrians if I go on. Now, I referred to it, and I hope it's not too late to introduce it. I come here to talk about a part of a bigger project, which is called What's the Deal? I mentioned it. And it's a transnational project on young urban cultures and sustainability. So there are like 5 very big terms in this subtitle. I skipped transnational, and like young urban cultures was highly discussed, and sustainability also can be highly discussed. As I said, we decided that it's very interesting to start from the individual, and the framework for the project is, or 2 of the, I think 5 most important aims of the project is to strengthen young urban culture and to engage with them actively, so to try to facilitate artistic and cultural production, to support it, and to try to build up networks and so on. And then also to support cultural workers in their professional careers. So I think that's something Schmiede does anyway, but it's maybe not always aware of. So there is a big part in this project which is actively trying to facilitate this, and then there is a research part, and that's where I am in the picture, because I'm a social scientist and I was asked to set up the research for Schmiede. There are 4 other partners in this project, 1 in Amsterdam, 1 in Ljubljana, and 2 in Munich. So, what is Schmiede? Schmiede is, first of all, I think a 10 days festival, an annual festival where 300 people come and participate usually. But I think it's more than that. It's also a network which consists also over the year. It communicates, the individuals communicate a lot, of course. They develop relationships and so on. They communicate in digital ways. They meet on different spots. For example, I'm living in Vienna. There are a lot of Smith, which is more or less the shortcut for Schmiede member. There are a lot of Smith in Vienna. We meet regularly, not always on purpose, but we also we support each other in professional ways or with ideas, with projects, also during the year. I tried to do a sketch, maybe to grasp it. There is this pink circle, I think it's over there. This is maybe the festival. If you consider a dot a Schmiede activity. Let's say a Schmiede activity is 2 Smiths share something which helps them for some reason, like maybe sharing the sorrow of not getting money for what we do, or also sharing a code or sharing some hardware tool, or just giving away a piece of composition or a piece of video work, all these things which happen. If you consider this a dot, then a lot of this happens in this orange circle called Schmiede Festival in Hallein, which is actually the opposite of young urban, because it's young rural in a way. And as a lot of people are coming in there to from far away, like people coming really from very far away, like from New York or from London and so on. So they live, actually this happens in a little isolation also. So it's not urban, but we think it's still urban because there is a lot of communication going on via digital means, and most of the people are situated in urban situations, and it's a very vivid network which works not so much on a local level, like in this once in a year it's very local, and all the other time it's in a way maybe translocal. That's the big blue circle, because this happens anyway, all the time. So, the story says that the What's the Deal project was funded when one person was wondering that it's really strange that that there are so many young teens who care so much about sustainability. And I think that to start a question with isn't it strange is very clever. So in a way, if you know Schmiede, it's in a way obvious that you could maybe participate, but it's maybe obvious, but it's still strange actually, because why would somebody spend their holiday like to work for others? That's what happens there mainly. You go there and work for your ideas, but often for other ideas, for the ideas of others, so to say. Or isn't it strange that people who are in a very precarious financial situation anyway go somewhere, spend money on hotel just to work all night? This is also very strange. And isn't it strange that people who are trained to be judgmental, because if you gained any artistic education, I would say, or you are trained to judge also, like this is art, this is not art, this is a good concept, this is not a good concept. But this is something what is Schmiede very much about, that you do not judge in the first place, or at least don't say it. So, isn't it strange that all these things does not happen? So, what kind of a space opens up if people come anyway? And some person said Schmiede is maybe something like a collective resource. So, the thing with the collective resource is, first, it evolves from the collective. So why does it evolve? And I think it must, and who can, like, what do people or what do individuals take out of it? That's like in a brief description why we started to come up with a research design which tries to focus on two things. First, maybe on the people behind the dots. And second, maybe on the orange circle. Like, because what I described now is like and they just do it, and it's between the people and blah blah. But of course it's not just between the people, there is also an organization behind it, and this is maybe the orange circle. So there are two research focuses, in a way. First is the Smith. In which way Schmiede is sustainable for its members. So we try to find out what's actually the motives, and also like what's the gainings for the people to participate, to admit to build up this collective resource, and also what they take out. And I mean, just to give you an impression, we ask about which decisions maybe Schmiede influenced, or which projects. For example, there is like people said, yeah, I had to decide on my further studies, and then I got some input, so my biography was a little bit drifting in this way. Or the year was not good, did a lot, but my rent still up or something like this. And then I had a place to share the sorrow. In a way. We try to find out about the actual influence, the comfort, the challenge also for the biographies of the people, of the Smiths, so to say. And of course, or of course not, but because I think it's really interesting also because lifelong learning, all these things are really, it's big keywords also, yeah? And I mean, also in Austria, a lot of money is spent to try to find ways to validate competences you gained in informal learning processes. So informal learning becomes more and more interesting. It becomes, and I think a lot of informal learning happens there. And it's interesting how these processes also affect biographies. It's always the same with the biographies, so to say. So, and then there is the second research focus, and it's also the relation of the Smith to Schmiede, so to say, to the framework. I mentioned it first when I said, what do they contribute to the collective resource? How do they contribute also? And also, where are the problems with contributing? Because, as you could have maybe understood, it's a thing people contribute to in their spare time, in a way, not in their spare time, but often in an unpaid time, let's say in an unpaid work time. And this has a lot of configurations also. Yeah, so that's, and how do we do this? I think all these questions are questions you cannot ask very directly, actually, because answers are prescripted if you ask too directly. So we did, and we are still doing it, more or less semi-narrative interviews. So, and I was not doing it because most of the people know me, and to create an atmosphere which is a little bit more distant, a colleague of mine from the Wirtschaftsuniversität Vienna was doing it. Yeah, and it was done person to person, when people are living in Vienna or via Skype. And yeah, I tried to grasp some diversity. It's very hard. I don't know how much you know about qualitative research. Well, enough to understand enough? Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, this will then be analyzed and published. There is a series of science. I think this department has a lot of experience with science. The project lead of What's the Deal also decided on science, so there will be science about different things, and there will also be a science about this research who tries to grasp what people take out of this research, of this Schmiede setting, and what they contribute. And it will be published 2015. And that was my input then, and I hope I didn't completely mix you up.